Before I continue, let me remind you where we left off. My husband Michael, who disappeared 41 years ago, suddenly returned to my doorstep. At first, I believed it was a miracle, an answered prayer after decades of loneliness. But then I discovered the letters from another woman, speaking of a life they had built together, of children who were not mine. He begged me not to tell my own family, but I knew then. He was hiding something far bigger than shame. And so, the question burned in my heart, why had he come back now? When the second winter storm hit that week, Michael and I were trapped in the house for 2 long days. The snow piled high against the door, and the wind howled like a warning outside. Inside, the silence between us was heavier than the storm. He tried to act as though nothing had changed. He chopped wood, lit the fire, asked about the children and grandchildren. But his eyes avoided mine, and every time he reached into his bag, I wondered if there were more secrets folded away in those neat envelopes. At night, when he thought I was asleep, I heard him whispering. His voice was low, urgent, like a man speaking to someone who wasn't there. Once, I caught the name Rose on his lips. My stomach turned to stone. Who was Rose? On the 3rd day, when the roads cleared, I decided I couldn't bear the silence any longer. I called my daughter and asked her to come. She arrived furious, her jaw tight, her eyes sharp as knives. "Why is he here?" she demanded the moment she stepped inside. "After what he did to us, after what he did to you, why are you letting him sit at your table?" Michael stood in the corner, pale and quiet. He looked more like a child than a man, his shoulders hunched, his hands trembling. "I need answers," I told her firmly. "I need to hear the truth from his mouth." But my daughter shook her head, her voice breaking. "Mama, the truth is simple. He left us. He built another life. That's all you need to know." And then she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Michael sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. "She'll never forgive me," he whispered. And I thought, why should she? Why should any of us? That night I confronted him again. "Who is Rose?" I asked. His eyes shot up, startled. "What?" "Don't lie to me. I heard you whisper her name." For a moment, silence. Then, slowly, he exhaled. She was the woman I lived with, for many years." The words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "And the children she wrote about, are they yours?" He looked away. That was answer enough. I felt dizzy, my hands gripping the chair for support. So it was true. While I raised our children alone, he had fathered others, given his love to another home. "Why now, Michael?" My voice broke into a sob. "Why come back after all these years? Why bring this pain to my door?" He pressed his lips together, his jaw tight. "Because she's gone," he muttered finally. "Rose passed away last month. The children, they have their own lives now. I had nowhere else to go." Nowhere else to go. That was the truth. Not love, not repentance, convenience. I don't know how long I sat there in silence. My heart was torn in two. On one side, the young woman in me, who had once loved him so fiercely that even after decades she longed for his return. On the other side, the old woman who saw clearly now. I had been nothing but the last option for a man who had already lived a full life without me. And yet, despite my fury, despite my humiliation, I couldn't send him away. Not yet. Because something about his story still didn't fit. Why had he carried the letters with him if Rose was already dead? Why did he guard them so closely, as if they were still alive inside him? That night, as the fire burned low, I realized Michael wasn't telling me everything. There was more, much more. My dear listeners, let me ask you, if you were me, what would you do now? Would you throw him out into the cold, knowing he only came back because he had nowhere else to go? Or would you keep digging, searching for the truth, even if it destroyed the last pieces of your heart? Tell me in the comments, because your voices matter to me. They remind me that I'm not alone in this. But stay with me, because what happened next would reveal a secret far darker than betrayal. A secret that showed me my husband hadn't just abandoned me. He had been living a life built on lies. And when I uncovered the final piece, it nearly broke me. The day after Michael admitted the truth about Rose, I moved through the house like a ghost. Every corner, every chair, every photograph of our children seemed to accuse me. How can you let him stay? But there he was, sitting by the fire with his hands folded, his eyes avoiding mine. He acted almost grateful, like a lost dog taken in from the cold. Part of me pitied him, but another part, a stronger part, burned with anger. I told myself, pity is dangerous, pity blinds you, and I would not let myself be blind again. I began watching him more closely. When he thought I wasn't looking, he would slip outside to smoke, always carrying his leather bag. One evening, when the snow had melted enough for me to follow, I crept quietly behind him. He walked down to the old shed at the edge of the yard, the one he built decades ago with his own hands. I peeked through a crack in the wooden boards. Inside, he knelt on the floor, pulling out letters, photographs, even a small box from his bag. He touched them with a kind of desperate tenderness, as if they were sacred. Through the dim light, I saw a photograph. A younger woman, Rose, I assumed, smiling with her arms wrapped around two grown children. My husband's arm was around her shoulders. His smile was the same one I remembered from my youth, but it wasn't for me. It had been given to another. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back, pressing my hand over my mouth to keep from crying out. Later that night, when he returned, I acted as if nothing had happened. But inside, my heart was breaking all over again. I wanted to confront him, to scream at him for turning my life into ashes. But I stopped myself. If I confronted him now, he might shut down, or worse, leave again before I knew the whole truth. I needed to know everything, and so I decided to play along. The next morning I made him breakfast, bread, eggs, tea. I smiled. I asked about the weather, about the aches in his hands. He seemed almost relieved, as though my silence meant forgiveness. Maybe, he said softly, we can still have some time together. We lost so much, Anna, but we still have today. His words nearly made me choke, We lost so much. No, I lost so much. He had built a whole other life. But I smiled anyway, because my silence was my weapon now. Days turned into weeks. Michael became comfortable in the house, as if he had always belonged. But the more comfortable he grew, the more I noticed the cracks in his story. One evening, as we sat by the fire, I asked about Rose's death. His voice faltered. She got sick. It happened quickly. But his eyes shifted. His fingers drummed nervously on the arm of the chair. What sickness? I pressed. He hesitated. It doesn't matter. She's gone. Something in me knew then. He wasn't telling the truth. That night, when he fell asleep in the chair, I went to the shed. I searched through the box he had hidden, my hands trembling. Inside, I found not only photographs and letters, but documents, official ones. One paper in particular caught my eye, a hospital record. Rose's name was printed at the top. My eyes scanned down until I froze at the words, cause of death, unnatural circumstances under investigation. My knees gave out. I nearly dropped the paper. Rose hadn't simply died of sickness. Her death was suspicious. And suddenly, the puzzle pieces shifted in my mind. Michael hadn't returned just because he had nowhere to go. He had returned because something terrible had happened, and he was running from it. When I came back inside, I looked at him differently. He wasn't just a husband who had betrayed me. He was a man hiding from something much darker. I sat across from him in silence, staring at his face, wondering, who exactly was the man I had once loved? My dear listeners, imagine this. You wait 41 years, you cry yourself to sleep for decades, and then the man you once loved comes back carrying secrets heavier than your heart can bear. Would you still let him stay under your roof? Would you risk the safety of your family to discover the truth? Tell me, write in the comments, because I need to know what you think. But I couldn't send him away. Not yet. Because the answers I had found only led to darker questions. And what I uncovered next about Michael's life with Rose would leave me shaking with fear, realizing that his return wasn't just painful for me, it might be dangerous. The night I discovered Rose's hospital record, I could not close my eyes. The words unnatural circumstances under investigation burned into my mind. I sat by the fire until dawn, the paper trembling in my hands. For 41 years, I had lived in pain because of Michael's absence. But now, for the first time, I felt something else. Fear. The next morning, I watched him closely. He hummed to himself as he chopped wood, his movement steady, almost cheerful. How could a man carry such shadows and still act so calm? At breakfast, I slid the record across the table. Care to explain this? His fork froze midway to his mouth, his face drained of color. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he pushed the plate away, leaned back, and let out a long, shaky sigh. You went through my things again, he said quietly. Answer me, I demanded. My voice shook, but I did not back down. What happened to her? Michael rubbed his temples, as though the weight of years pressed down on him. Finally he whispered, She died in the house. They They said it looked suspicious. But I swear to you, Anna, I had nothing to do with it. I searched his face for truth, but his eyes, once the eyes I had trusted more than anything, looked away from mine. You expect me to believe that? I spat. You disappeared for 4 decades, built another life, fathered other children, and now you come back carrying this? I tapped the paper. Do you even understand what this means? His hands trembled. They were investigating me, Anna. The police. The neighbors whispered. The children doubted. I couldn't stay there anymore. And so you came here, I said bitterly. Not because you loved me, not because you regretted leaving. You came here to hide. The silence between us stretched long and heavy. I could hear the clock ticking, the fire crackling. Finally, he said, almost in a whisper, I didn't kill her, but she was the reason I couldn't return to you sooner. She wouldn't let me. My chest tightened. Wouldn't let you? You chose her, Michael. His face twisted with something between shame and anger. You don't understand. She was controlling. She held things over me. She threatened me if I left. And when she died, he broke off, his voice cracking. They thought it was me. I stared at him, my mind spinning. Was he telling the truth, or was this another story, another lie layered over the years of betrayal? My heart screamed to throw him out, to shut the door forever. But another part of me, a part I hated, wanted to keep listening. Because if there was even a chance he spoke the truth, then I needed to know what really happened. That evening, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I called my daughter. I told her everything. About Rose, about the children, about the suspicious death. She listened in silence, and then her voice broke with fury. Mama, this man doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as you. He's dangerous. He's using you. Don't you see it? Tears ran down my cheeks. I know, I whispered, but I need to understand why. Why he came back now. Why me, after all these years? Mama, she said firmly, if you won't send him away, I will, for your sake. And then she hung up, leaving me shaking with guilt and fear. That night, I heard Michael pacing in the next room. Back and forth, like a caged animal. His shadow passed across the door crack, his muttering low, frantic. I caught words. Not my fault. They'll never know. Can't let it happen again. Again. The word froze my blood. My dear listeners, I ask you now, if you heard those words, if you lived under the same roof as a man who spoke them in the dark, what would you think? Would you believe his story of innocence, or would you fear the truth? Please write your thoughts. I need to know if my fear was madness, or if anyone else would have felt the same. Because what happened the following morning confirmed my worst suspicions, and it proved to me that Michael had not come back simply to seek shelter. He had come back carrying a secret so dark that my life, and the lives of those I loved, might never be safe again. The morning after I heard him pacing and muttering in the dark, I felt the air in the house change. It was colder somehow, heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Michael sat at the table staring into his tea, his hands wrapped tight around the cup. His eyes were red, and when I asked if he had slept, he only shook his head. I decided then I could no longer remain in silence. I needed to know everything. "Tell me the truth, Michael," I said firmly. "Tell me what happened to Rose." His hands froze on the cup. He looked up slowly, his face pale, his eyes dark and tired. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he whispered, "She found out." My heart thudded in my chest. Found out what? That I had been married before, that I had children I left behind. She used it against me. She said if I ever tried to leave, she would ruin me, tell everyone what I had done, destroy my name. I swallowed hard. And when she died, his lips trembled. They thought I killed her. The neighbors said they heard us arguing, but it wasn't me. I swear, Anna, it wasn't me. I stared at him, searching his face for even a flicker of truth. But the more he spoke, the less I knew whether I was looking at the man I had once loved, or at a stranger wearing his skin. "Why carry her letters, then?" I asked. "If she trapped you, if she made your life so unbearable, why do you hold on to her words like treasures?" His face twisted with pain. Because she was all I had. When I left you, when I betrayed everything we built, she was the only one who wanted me. I hated her sometimes, yes, but I also needed her. Without her, I was nothing. The admission cut me deeper than any lie. For hours that day, I moved around the house in silence, my thoughts spinning like a storm. The truth was tangled, impossible to hold. He claimed innocence, but his eyes, his trembling, his late-night muttering told me another story. And then something happened that shattered the last pieces of my doubt. That afternoon, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, a man stood there in a heavy coat, his face sharp, his eyes cold. "Does Michael live here?" he asked. I hesitated, my throat dry. "Who are you?" The man didn't answer my question. He only said, "Tell him we know. He can't run forever." Then he turned and walked away, his boots crunching in the snow, leaving me trembling in the doorway. When I closed the door, Michael was standing behind me. His face was white as paper, his fists clenched. "Who was that?" I demanded. He shook his head quickly. "No one. Just someone from the past. Forget it." But I couldn't forget. Not after hearing those words. He can't run forever. That night, I confronted him one last time. "What are you hiding from me? What did you do, Michael?" His eyes filled with tears. He dropped into a chair, his shoulders collapsing under an invisible weight. "I never wanted you to find out," he whispered. "Not like this. But if you keep digging, Anna, you'll wish I had never come back." The fire crackled between us. His words hung heavy in the air, colder than the snow outside. My dear listeners, tell me, what would you do if the man you once loved spoke those words to you? Would you still believe in his innocence? Or would you finally accept that the person you had been waiting for all these years was not the man you remembered at all? Write in the comments because I need to hear your voices. As I sat there, staring at the man I once thought I knew, I realized something with chilling clarity. Michael's return wasn't an ending. It was only the beginning of a much darker story. And in the next part, I will tell you what I discovered, the final truth about who he had become, and why his return after 41 years nearly destroyed me for good.